Chess Diagnostic.
Hello everybody and welcome to Chess Diagnostic. Today I'm going to look at a game that was played recently in Norway Chess, round 6, between Levon Aronian and Vladimir Kramnik. Alright, let's fix that square. So Aronian's white and it starts out with d4, d5, c4, e6, knight to f3, knight to f6. So far we're in the Queen's Gambit declined, but they head towards a semi-Tarrasch defense after knight to c3 and then c4. Now, what makes this a semi-Tarrasch defense? Actually, they head towards a Grunfeld type center, because after they exchange pawns, the knight takes, and Aronian plays e4, Kramnik takes the knight on c3, and now Aronian's built up this Grunfeld type center. Now, the strategic ideas behind this for white is that after the pawn takes, c takes d, white has a strong center, and his main strategic plan is to eventually push d4 to d5, and he'll have a pass pawn that he can kind of ram down the d file, potentially distracting black while he starts an attack on the king side or dominates the c file. So these ideas are present from the beginning for white. Now what about black? Well, black has the ideas of quick development. For example, after the bishop gives check, they trade, and now black can castle immediately. Kramnik likes this variation because he can trade all the pieces as quickly as possible and just kind of gain rapid development of the queen side as well as maintaining a normal position. Now, the good thing about this for white, of course, is that he gains rapid development as well, and he has that strong pawn center. So Aronian plays a little bit unconventionally here with his piece placement, but it makes strategic sense because bishop to c4 is supporting the idea of moving the d-pawn immediately or as fast as possible. So after a couple more developing moves, Aronian plays rook from a to c. Now, another strategic idea in this opening is dominance of the c file, because this open c file, especially after white has pushed, the d-pawn can become a major point where white can penetrate into black's position. So he immediately starts these strategic ideas. But after a couple moves, it becomes apparent that the play in the center switches. Alright, so the normal move, bishop to b7, attacking the e4 pawn. And now we see the idea of Aronian simply pushing the d pawn as fast as possible, but the drawback is that black can now post his knight on the c5 square as well as hitting the e4 pawn, protecting the e4 pawn. And Kramnik just keeps the tension, doesn't take. Now notice that we can't really play e5 right away, because after queen to g6, if we just simply advance the pawn or even take on e6 here, then there's actually a pin of the g pawn, and he's threatening mate as well. So we can't go down that line, but of course we'd love to play e5 and get a protected passed pawn, but it's maybe not the strongest continuation because it does create some weaknesses in the center as well as on the king side. So Aronian plays queen to e3, and of course Kramnik is contesting the c file, and now we see e5. Okay, so we're getting this line, but of course the drawback is that this light square bishop has quite a lot of power, and Aronian's pawns have kind of closed off his pieces, but he's able to make threats with the d-pawn. Of course, f6 trying to undermine that support of the d-pawn, and here we see knight to h4. So Kramnik brings his queen forward with queen to g4, which is a slight inaccuracy because queen to h5 is a little better to cover this e5 square. So after g3, of course, protecting the knight as well as protecting this g2 square because the bishop and the queen were threatening mate. After the pawn takes, the queen takes, and now Aronian has a lot of pressure on this e6 pawn. Kramnik's best shot, even though he's in quite a difficult position at this point, would be to simply, instead of moving this rook over to threaten the d-pawn, would be to move the king over, and after white plays f4, he's starting to have some threats against this queen, which could become trapped. So he could actually move the knight back, hitting this queen, and elicit a trade of pieces here. Now, even though he would be a pawn down, he would actually have some chances for a draw. So he's simplified, and he can fight back. Kramnik doesn't go for this line. Instead, he tries to complicate things even more and puts his queen in even more danger. So after rook from c to d8, the king hadn't moved. We see f4, and now Aronian is starting to have some threats against Kramnik's queen. And Kramnik becomes a little bit worried. So he knows that he can take this knight if he brings the rook up, and he'll be able to force a trade, but he'll lose an exchange. After rook to c3, though, there's quite a lot of threats. Now the rook can't come and take this knight, and after bishop to e2, Kramnik starts to worry about his queen because of queen to g5, hitting this rook and threatening bishop to g4. So he takes, and then we see this pin. Now let's go back a little bit here. So actually after the rook moves over to h6, the best move for white would have been knight to f5. And now notice the rook can't move back because the queen would simply take. Now the queen can't take this knight because it's pinned against the king. And if the pawn takes, then we get this fork, and Aronian would have won a clear rook. So that would have been immediately winning, but we don't see that line. Instead, we saw rook to h6, bishop to e2, threatening the queen. So the queen pretty much only has one safe square at this point. After queen to g5, threatening the rook, there's only one move, which is queen takes the knight. And now Aronian has won an exchange and with a much better position. Now notice that Kramnik hasn't even had the chance to take this d-pawn. So Aronian protects it, giving Kramnik even more problems. f5, rook takes, and now he still can't even take this pawn. And at this point, Aronian is just totally won. He has that the d6 passed pawn, which was a major strategic advantage, and he's managed to hold on to it, which is an amazing feat. And now he starts to have mating threats after he switches his focus to the e-file. This light square bishop is just cutting in to black's weak position, and after he moves his rook to the 7th rank and then doubles on the e-file, there's no way to prevent. Even if he takes, he would just deflect the king and get a queen. So at this point, Kramnik has resigned because there's no way to prevent either a mate threat. For example, he's threatening to check, or if the rook moves, then he would just simply win a rook. There's just too many threats for Kramnik to handle, so he resigned at this point. Definitely an amazing game by Aronian. Kramnik had quite a lot of mistakes, though. If we go back, it's interesting to see how, from our evaluation of activity, White's pieces are quite active all over. He has his bishop here, cutting in the center. The knight's over here threatening to come either to f5 or pretty much anywhere. And black only has the rook and the queen, and these pieces are completely inactive. Not only that, but his queen has almost no safe squares. And it's because of these weaknesses in activity that Aronian beat Kramnik in under 30 moves. Alright, so I hope you have enjoyed this analysis of Norway 2017 Round 6 by Aronian and Kramnik. Maybe I'll be posting more Norway chess videos either today or tomorrow. Leave a comment, and I'll see you in the future. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for future videos. See you in the future.